Enjoy an afternoon at Lambeau Field while supporting clean air and clean energy efforts at the Wisconsin Clean Cities Coalition's annual stakeholder meeting Tuesday, December 6th. Join us in celebrating our members' successes in increasing the use of alternative fuels and alternative fuel vehicles, reducing dependence on petroleum use and foreign oil, and improving air quality. Learn how Wisconsin Clean Cities members are making a difference in their communities while enjoying a delicious lunch overlooking Lambeau Field. Network with industry leaders, learn about the latest technologies, and take a behind-the-scenes tour of the home of the Green Bay Packers. Make your reservations now at wicleancities.org. That's wicleancities.org.
Good afternoon, Chicagoland, and welcome to another edition of the Green Radio Network. Here on the Green Radio Network, we'll bring you a variety of green topics and the latest information on green technology and transportation. This program features environmental leaders throughout northern Indiana and the entire nation. The Green Radio Network is sponsored by NIRPC, the Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, and the award-winning South Shore Clean Cities. Both entities are leaders in the environmental industry and work together to bring cleaner air and more sustainable living to northern Indiana. Now to introduce Carl Lissick, Executive Director of South Shore Clean Cities and the host of the show.
Well, good morning. This is Carl Lissick, and thank you for that introduction. Today, our guest is Mitch Barloga. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Well, we got a lot to talk about on the Green Radio Network, and it's always a pleasure. Mitch, there's just so much going on in our area, and let's remind our listeners.
I am the transportation planning manager and the active transportation planner. Got a dual role at Northwest Indiana Regional Planning Commission, NIRPC.
Yep.
And been there for 12 years, and I'm trying to advocate for trails and bike and pedestrian transportation options, primarily in the region, while kind of overseeing the entire transportation planning operations.
So much going on with trails. I know with WIMS and some of the things that they're working on with, the health and welfare of employees and residents and students, and just so many good things and so many parallels that are overlapping with a lot of work that we do and with you. So why don't you give our listeners a little bit of an update on the Greenways and Blueways Map that just recently came out?
Yeah, the map, it's great. We've, this is our third edition, and I guess some people say by the time you do it the third time, you're figuring it out. So we're definitely at that point. It's been produced by the Active Transportation Alliance out of Chicago. They have done the other two editions, but a lot more clarity this time. Colors are different, and the routes just pop up better on the map. And we've included some new sponsors have helped us out this year as well, which we're very thankful for. And because of them, and because that we use that local match with our federal funding, we can distribute this map freely. And we've been doing that to libraries, city halls throughout the Northwest Indiana region. For those that are getting your broadcast outside the NIRPC region, we will mail them free copies of the map.
That's nice.
And we have a lot of requests out of Chicago for those maps, which is great. And so it's a wonderful way of promoting this region and helping people understand where the routes are and where they can enjoy them.
So the impact that you've made on me, I have to tell you a funny story.
Oh, please.
I was one of our former neighbors moved to Georgia, the Atlanta area, and Smyrna, Georgia. And so I was there with my wife, Lori, and what do we do on the weekends? And we are going for a walk on the trails. And I was just overwhelmed with this trail, Mitch, I got to tell you. And it was the Silver Comet Trail. It went 61.5 miles.
That's a big walk.
Went from, I didn't go 61 miles, but I was so surprised on how many people were on this trail. And, bike riders, rollerbladers, families, and it was just wonderful. It was, and I was taking pictures, and I said, man, I need to put these on Facebook so Mitch can see them. But I have to say that we were talking about you in Georgia.
Oh, good.
And it was like, and it's like, what a great pleasure it was to walk these trails. And then, I related it back to the things that are going on here in our own backyard, and, what joy that we've gotten. As I've gotten older, I've had some more time on my hands, and using some of these great trails throughout our area, just for connectivity and some of the things and some of the economic development that's going on in and around some of these trails.
Yes.
Can we talk a little bit about that? I think that's one of the things that I see is, I saw all this development in Georgia and all these great things and exciting things that were going on in and around these trails and the community impact.
Right.
And, I'm starting to see that in our area now. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. And it's embryonic in the sense of what we have on the ground here and really the research that we've been able to pile up. But really around the country, there is stacks and stacks of data out there that show trails, greenways to be economic generators for a certain community, especially in the sense of property values. People that live near trails, their homes have higher property values. Where trails are located, businesses are able to retain employees or attract employees to their communities. It's just, I've always called trails community elixirs. There's practically nothing wrong with them, and, they purport to do these wonderful things, and they actually back it up. And so when you have trails around, people have that desire to want to be near them. And, you're talking about the Georgia example, and I'm sure that was just a wonderful excursion into nature and all that. And that's one of the great joys about trails. You're outside the grid of the roadway network. No noise, no pollution. You're in there with nature. I think as, man himself or, human beings want to be close to nature to begin with, and this is a wonderful way of getting into it. And just as a side note, one of our trails that are opening up very shortly, the C&O, Greenway in Maryville from Broadway into Mississippi, real near the mall area, I took a walk on that trail now that they've just asphalted it, and it's just drop dead gorgeous. You wouldn't know you're in the middle of Maryville. And many of these trails, you don't even know you're in the middle of urbanity all around you. Great escapes.
No, and again, I think, if you haven't had the opportunity to be on the trails, what a wonderful time to start in this fall. I mean, I think we're going to have some phenomenal colors this year.
Yes.
And I know just, driving here to the radio station, I was thinking about that. I said, man, I think I'm going to go for a walk on the way back, just going to stop off and go on one of the trails. So, just really, really excited about all the great work and all of your partners that have done in Northwest Indiana. And so I know one of the things that is changing is NIRPC is counting trails. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, it always helps when you can, try to clarify to local officials how popular your trails are. And there's no better way of doing it than having counts of how many people are using it at a certain time of day, certain time of the week, and what have you. We have installed 12 of these counters on our trail networks throughout the region. There's like 6 trails that we have put these counters on, 5 alone on the Erie-Lackawanna because it is the longest system in Northwest Indiana from Hammond to Crown Point. And we're getting some interesting numbers that are coming out of it, about 400, 500 people a week.
Wow.
Let's see, a day actually using these trails. And obviously that's very helpful for our planning and promotion of systems and, helping to plan more trails. In fact, helping to maintain them for, future use.
So as you talk about this, that trail obviously is one of the more popular trails that's being used. And so, what do you think one of the barriers for us as Northwest Indiana Hoosiers has been with the trails? Do you think it's just been lack of knowledge that these trails even exist?
Yeah, that's a big issue. I mean, I don't think anyone here in the Hoosier State is anyone different than around the country. I think everyone as a person has a desire to be on these systems, and that's why they're so popular, and that's why we're seeing them grow so well up here in our region, and we've seen them grow tenfold in the last 20 years.
Absolutely.
I think the big problem, Carl, that we're trying to address at NIRPC is making sure they're identified. That when people are on trails, they know what trail they're on, they know where they're going. There's wayfinding, that people know where the nearby destinations are. We don't have that. I always say our trails have an identity crisis, and you could be on one trail and the other, you wouldn't know which trail you're on or what community you're going through. I think if you're taking a bike ride and you're going on a nice 5 to 10 mile leisurely ride, but you go through 4 communities, you're going to feel accomplished. So we're trying to make that a reality. We're working with communities on the Prairie Duneland in Porter County and the Erie-Lackawanna Trail in Lake County to make that a reality, maybe as early as next year.
One of the nice things that I've seen, and again, I've been in many meetings with you that you've chaired, and just seeing how there's collaboration.
Yes.
And competition, because I feel like the communities want to have the nicest trail in their area because they see the value, and that's changed. I mean, that's changed in the last several years, and so I see collaboration with the communities. let's work together to extend our trail, so you can come to my community, I can come to your community.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of that. And then, also then I see the opportunities where, the folks are just saying, hey, we need more trails. We want to continue to expand this opportunity to move to a greener infrastructure into our community, because that's what people want. And so what do you think we're going to see in the future?
Well, again, I think we're going to see far more of our corridors redeveloped into trail networks. We have roughly about 150 miles of abandoned railroad that have been converted into trail in Northwest Indiana, give or take. And there's another 150 or so miles out there that go through some kind of unpopulated areas that are going to be somewhat challenging to develop because of the rural nature and the lack of funding out there. But we're going to still try to make that work. Like the community of Winfield, they have some great opportunities out there, but they just don't really have money to work with right now, barely have enough for a police force. So those are realities we have to keep in mind. But it's not only the trails that we have to keep in mind. The future is building a network. A network is a huge deal, trying to get people to walk and bike more wherever they are in their community. There's a great slogan across the state line, Trails for Illinois call. They say, make your home your trailhead, which is wonderful, where you can just walk out of your home and you can go places by bike or by foot safely. And that includes things like improved sidewalks, bike lanes, routes through your community that are safe and signed. And then, of course, connecting to our non-motorized highways are trails.
Sure.
And so it's the network is going to be the big thing, Carl, because our trails are, I think, very popular. There's so much critical mass moving forward with their development. Now we have to start connecting them together within these communities.
So any new trails that are going to be opening up by this year end?
Yeah, as I spoke about, the CNO Greenway is happening, and we've had some improvements. The Marquette Greenway, which is the 50-mile vision from South Chicago all the way to New Buffalo, it's about 55 miles, and we're going to see two major segments opening up. One has already done so in the city of Hammond, and that's kind of along the tollway. And then we have another segment in the city of Gary that's looking to open up as well. So, and other trails are coming along. The Little Calumet Levee Trail, which has been definitely neglected for many years, has been repaved. I give the director, Dan Repay, a whole bunch of credit. They've received some new tax money to help with the maintenance of the levee, and they have done that with paving a lot of the trail out there. Several miles have been repaved all the way through Munster and Highland into Griffith. It's been wonderful to see that because, again, that is a great east-west corridor, and it's wonderful to see it come alive like this.
So, again, I know that there's been a lot of public input, public meetings on the Greenways and Blueways 2020 plan. Talk a little bit about that. What is this plan?
The plan is an update of two plans. The Greenways and Blueways plan, which came out in 2007, and then the Ped and Pedal plan. Now, what we're doing, Carl, is unique. I know in the world of planning, there's nothing ever unique. It's a R&D world, which is rip off and duplicate. Everybody, they see what you're doing. That's what it is. I mean, come on. I mean, why invent the wheel when this metropolitan area has done it so well? So anyway, in our case, we have such a strong environmental ethic here. And, this show is an offspring of this. And the fact that we care about our environment, we have such an ecologically diverse area, that we're kind of squeezing both of these concepts together, where we have conservation, recreation, and transportation. Okay. And I'm working very closely with Kathy Luther on conservation issues, water trail issues, land trail issues, and non-motorized through your community, complete streets, safe routes to school, and bringing all this together in one cohesive plan. We are in the process of getting we're in the middle of it right now, getting the first draft ready for public comment as early as next week.
Wow.
And hopefully, if everything goes well, we can have it approved by the end of the year. And again, it'll be groundbreaking in the sense of the scope it is looking to advance in our region.
It's exciting.
Yes.
So as you talk about some of the trails that are being developed, what about the water trail front?
Water trail front is just really ahead of the curve and always has been. Dan Plath and Northwest Indiana Regional Paddling Association have been just a model advocacy organization from the start. I mean, they now have maybe 500 or so members in this region. You never knew there was that many paddlers and kayakers
You're right. No, I agree.
And it is a very robust and passionate group of people. And they're out there, and they're not only doing these paddling events, which are great, but they're also advocating for it. They're helping open up the Little Calumet River on the East Branch and the National Lakeshore up in the Porter area. They were single-handedly responsible for the Kankakee being designated, the Kankakee River being designated a national water trail, which is a wonderful designation, and it's not an easy one to obtain either. But that was just done earlier this year, so an extremely good achievement. And again, we're trying to look at communities like at Lowell and communities such as Portage with their creek systems where you have Salt Creek and Cedar Creek, and trying to make local systems come alive as well, which is obviously a challenge because you're talking about maybe a couple miles or 3 or 4 miles of paddling, which is wonderful if you're a youth or if you just want to get out for a quick paddle and you don't want to, do it in a way that is exerting yourself like you probably would be on the Kankakee River
Sure.
and Lake Michigan especially.
Yeah.
So those are opportunities that we're continuing to try to work with communities on.
Are you seeing like new businesses being developed through like the paddlers? I mean, since it's taken off, kayak rentals and stuff. Are we starting to see new businesses being developed? I know there's been a lot of bike organizations that have really taken off because of the trails. And,
yes.
People are just getting more educated. They want it's just become exercising and being outside. It's just it's catchy, and people want to do. They want to be involved with things that are making them feel better, making them healthier. And
sure, yeah. And we did this survey last year about the reasons why people use trails. And the primary reason was health and wellness.
Sure,
they're out there exercising. They're not just doing foo-foo recreation and looking at birds all day, which some people do, and God bless them. But in this case,
you call me foo-foo, Mitch?
Well, only if you're sitting there but even your walk in Georgia was exercise-inducing. You got to walk in.
You're right.
So you really can almost chalk everything up to exercise, actually.
That's true.
But people are out there running, and they're doing, timed bicycle rides quite a bit. And when you talk about paddling, I can't give you any, solid empirical data about what's happening in the paddling world regarding any businesses but I'm sure they have been taking off in the sense of talking to maybe Bass Pro and Cabela's and
Absolutely.
all these other outfitters that are there. They probably can see a spike in the amount of people that are buying canoe and kayak-related material. And the same thing applies to places that are selling bicycles and running shoes. I mean, you have now a lot of running programs that are taking off. A lot of people are now, wanting to do a marathon. It was almost like no one wanted to climb Everest years ago. Now everyone's climbing Everest. You get like all these, and the marathon thing is no different. Everyone now can do a marathon. It's tough, but you have so many programs because you have now trails where they can train safely on and comfortably on.
I know we've worked on our aspect of working with law enforcement and in regards to security and the different security things that a lot of our communities are working across their areas of expertise, let's say, and implementing electric motorcycles, electric cars, and things like that.
Yes.
I think a lot of times people, are just wondering how secure are our trails as we go walking. I know, I see law enforcement is looking. I'm not saying for trails perspective, they're looking at ways of cutting fuel budgets and looking at ways of potentially speaking out with the community, being a little more environmental friendly with the community providers. Let's talk about security on trails. Anything going on with that?
Well, security, one thing, and I'll get to your other question with fuel efficiency, but security is not even really an issue with trails. I mean, in fact, where trails are located, they are extremely safe because many times the police do patrol them, bicycle patrols. And so when you're talking about fuel efficiency, you can get cops on bikes more often, and that's one great way to connect with your neighborhood. And a lot of our communities, especially the older downtown areas, you got your Crown Point, your Valpos, your Griffiths, and what have you, you can easily patrol those on bicycle and then can send a message to your community that cops are visible, they're accessible, and they're on a bicycle, so that's inspiring. But security has never been an issue. I mean, yes, we've had some instances
just like anything else.
Just like anything else. There was a couple of instances where women were assaulted, but it was late at night or early in the morning when they were alone in areas where they shouldn't be. Sure. And this could happen on a sidewalk.
It can.
As much as it could happen on a trail. You just got to be smart.
Right.
Very, very simple.
That is true. So again, I know that you do numerous events, you love to talk about trails. You love to talk about, everything that's going on in our area. How can people get involved in what you're doing?
Well, there's ways of doing that. There's always an outlet. So that's a great question because advocacy is key. I mean, I can only do so much. And the best success that we have seen in any community around the country is when people get together and they actually want to make a difference, work with their communities, and make things happen. No different here. Mm-hmm. And we have a group called South Shore Trails, and it is our main bike and pedestrian advocacy group. They are a legitimate 501c nonprofit, and they have been doing this work here in the region for a good dozen years. Still trying to get their feet under them, but they do have a very robust group that have gone around. They have lobbied for different changes. I think the last thing they lobbied for was a detour on a trail in Maryville that was closing.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I do remember that. Absolutely.
And that was started by South Shore Trails.
Okay.
And, this is something that, they talk to me, they work with me, and, I tell them, look, I can only do so much. I'm not the voice of the people. NIRPC advises and inspires, and that's about the most we can do. And they are our clients as well, so we're not looking to aggravate them. Not to say the advocates aggravate, but they do shake the tree more than we do. And we can only provide information, but then they can take it and talk to council people directly because they live in these communities. And the people, and I'll give credit to the elected officials, even at the most local level, they are very responsive to their constituents. They just don't hear from them a lot, Carl. I mean, they might hear from them like, okay, my neighbor's dog just came over here on my yard and he's doing things. I don't like that. Well, they don't get things that are broad-based. Like maybe someone that actually talks about converting your police force to electric vehicles or what have you like that, or maybe put some more bike lanes in the community. When they hear things like that, they perk up because those are things that benefit everybody, and they're all for that.
You're right. So, as we're coming towards the end of the year already, I mean, it's hard to believe that this year went by so fast. But anything that's coming out for 2017 that our listeners would be interested in hearing?
Well, again, more and more our trails are being developed, and we're looking to finally connect. I think the big thing for the region has been the connection between the Oak-Savannah Trail and the Prairie Dune. No, the Oak-Savannah and the Erie-Lackawanna. My trail's sometimes messed up, but that has been a gap that has existed at the Griffith Oak Ridge Prairie for years. And people would have to ride on Colfax to get into the Oak Ridge Prairie, and it's just not safe. And Lake County Parks is finally building a trail out to Colfax. The town of Griffith is taking it from Colfax to Erie-Lackawanna, so you're going to be able to have a safe off-road trail connection between these two major facilities. And that's the big news. And probably in another year or two, you're going to see the Pensy Greenway connect between Munster and Schererville.
Wonderful. I mean, it's exciting.
Yeah, that would be a huge one because you're getting a lot of use on the Pensy in both Munster and Schererville, and when they can connect, it's going to be explosive.
Yeah. One thing that we've been hearing a lot about with alternative fuels and alternative energies is the Smart Cities Initiative. And how does that relate to your advocacy of trails?
Well, I think Smart Cities advocates for alternate transportation uses, not only alternate fuels and alternate ways of engine retrofit, but also with getting people on bike and getting people to walk more, making sure that their destinations are close to where they live and where they can commute closer to home as well, where a bicycle and walking are a real option. I live 21 miles from where I work. And that's complicated. But, for people that are smart enough to know where they work, they can, move within a mile or two, and that is easily, accessed by a bicycle or by walking. And then working with smart cities, you're also talking about smart employers that have incentives. Obviously, you have incentives for clean fuels, and there should be incentives to make sure that people can walk and bike more. You provide parking, you provide showers and lockers for your employees when they get there. So there's just a whole gamut of ways of making this work. Again, getting even into the schools, making sure that they're sited closer to neighborhoods instead of pushed out into the farm where you have no other choice but to drive to them. Keep them close in the neighborhoods. So biking and walking are essential to smart cities.
And again, I think it all comes with education. And again, I think, again, if people do want to get involved in this initiative and learn more about Mitch Barloga and this initiative, how would they do that, Mitch?
Well, you can go to our website at NIRPC, NIRPC.org, and there is a Greenways and Blueways link, and you can learn about all the ways that we're trying to improve this region and grow our system.
I know one thing, though, Mitch, is that NIRPC has been working not just in our area. They've been, connectivity with other areas. Could you talk just a little bit about that? With Illinois and with Michigan and some of the other MPOs.
And that's a great question. We've embraced Northeast Illinois, and in the sense of when we put out our map, we include about 5 to 10 miles of their area and the trails that we can connect to out there. But we have some major initiatives that connect by state and beyond. We have even tri-state. Michigan, we have the Marquette Greenway that we're working with South Chicago on, connecting from the Hammond Marina territory into the Calumet Park area, right along the old state line generating plant territory. And so
I used to fish there,
I used to fish there. That trail will probably be built in 2018. We have it funded, and that'll connect to Chicago and get that side done. The Michigan side is a little trickier because there's a lot more of a tighter fit going through US 12 corridor, but we're already working with Southwest Michigan. They're very excited about the prospect of getting a trail into New Buffalo and into Harbor Country. We have a lot of people that are attracted to that area, obviously, and it'd be great if people can bike into there. And then the American Discovery Trail. We're talking about a coast-to-coast system from Delaware to California. It comes into this region, so we're trying to make sure that stays online and that we can get that turned into a off-road trail as much as possible here. And then even from a bicycle perspective, the United States bicycle route system. We have USBR 36 and 35 that goes north and south through LaPorte County, and 36 that pretty much goes from Michigan all the way to Chicago, much like the Marquette Greenway. Yeah.
Now, Mitch, it's always, anytime we talk about NIRPC and we talk about some of the things that are going on with NIRPC and we talk about our trail system, Mitch Barloga's name always comes up and always smiling. So, again, continued success for you and the program and for our area. We're very proud. And I know that you eat, drink, and sleep this.
Pretty much.
You are definitely an advocate for our area. And so thank you for your service. I mean that sincerely.
Thank you, Carl.
And thank you for being a good Purdue fan also.
Oh, yeah, boiler up.
Because there's very few of us that are out there right now.
Especially with football, you bet.
Any closing thoughts before we get off?
Well, closing thoughts, I just encourage people, especially this time of year, go discover your nearest trail, get on a bike, get walking, get biking, get moving. That's important in life.
Wonderful. And again, thank you on behalf of the Green Radio Network. And that will do it for today's edition of the Green Radio Network. And please listen to us on our upcoming show. And you can never begin your legacy soon enough. Thank you.
Interested in adding alternative fuels to your fleet but not sure where to start? Enroll in the free Midwest Drives program. The U.S. Department of Energy-sponsored program provides free alternative fuel vehicle demonstrations for public and private fleets in Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio. Midwest Drives gives fleet managers peace of mind about the alternative fuels best suited for your operations. Available vehicles span all class sizes and alternative fuel types. Enroll today and schedule free vehicle demos to best fit the needs of your fleet. A full list of vehicles and enrollment forms are available online at MidwestDrives.org. That's MidwestDrives.org.
Every Sunday at 2 p.m. on WIMS.
The Time Warp Sunday Request Show with Bart Shore.
I'm playing music from the 50s, 60s, and 70s every Sunday at 2 p.m. on AM 1420 WIMS, the talk of the South Shore.